A little snow over on the peaks. Last year when I was here, it snowed during the night, snowed all day, snowed the next day. Not heavy, but it was in the air for 2 days. It was cold. Good morning, Silvia. It's day 5 of our adventure. We're in Casper, Wyoming. It's in the low 60s already. Elevation is over 5,000 feet. We're going to Lander, Wyoming today. It's going to be an easy day. Every 4 to 5 days, I like to have a fairly easy day just to catch up on my rest and do any maintenance. But getting a late start. It's after 10 o'clock, but that's okay. Let's get on the road. On day 5, I did nothing. I rode 2,200 miles from home to Casper in 4 days. So this day, I just went from one motel to the next and visited a local museum. So let's move on to day 6. For some reason, I love this place. I stayed here last year. It's called the Pronghorn Lodge, and you can see it has a Western theme with the exposed logs. Good morning, Silvia. It's day 6 of our adventure. We're in Lander, Wyoming. Tonight we'll be in Soda Springs, Idaho. It's about 50 degrees and we're at 5,400 feet in elevation. And today we take the Lander Cutoff on the Oregon Trail. Let's get started. Well, good morning. Today's a little different weather-wise. I think it rained a little bit during the night, and actually I'm getting splattered just a little bit right now. It's cooler. I may have to get my heated gear out. I guess I should have checked the weather, but I gotta go no matter what. Yesterday was a down day for me. I only rode about 130 miles. I took no video, and I want to share one tidbit about Wyoming. Wyoming has a population of just a little over 500,000 people. I live in the Raleigh area of North Carolina in Wake County. Wake County has 1.2 million people in that one county. So the county that I live in has more than twice the population of the entire state of Wyoming. And I've read that there are more cattle in Wyoming than people. So anyway, that's a factoid for today, but I love the state. It's wide open. It's just, to me, it's a pretty state. So we're headed on down to the Lander Cutoff. I won't be able to ride the actual cutoff because it's gravel road, Forest Service road, and if it rained last night, that would not be a good idea no matter what. But the paved road intersects the Lander Trail at a couple of places, and there's some points of interest there for the Oregon Trail, and that's where we're headed. Well, this is a neat stop. Three men killed here by Indians, June 7th, 1870. And the man I'm interested in is Harvey Morgan. So history is a little vague. Either he was going to court a widow lady or going to offer to buy her farm. But anyway, he had 2 buddies that went with him, and they got caught up in an Indian attack, and they all 3 perished. But poor old Harvey had something called a queen pin driven through his skull. It was a multi-purpose tool that came with a wagon. It was a hammer, all made out of metal, and the end was pointed. It could also be used to hitch the wagon body to the yoke. Well, it made a perfect weapon for an Indian to grab by the head of the hammer. And poor old Harvey got that hammer driven through his skull. So old Harvey was buried locally and rested there for 37 years until 1907. They were digging a water line and dug old Henry up with the hammer still in his skull. And there was a local guy still alive who remembered that incident and identified Henry. They kept the skull to start the local historical museum in Lander. And I stopped there yesterday and went through the museum. I got a photo of old Henry's skull. Let me show it to you. Just a little bit of odd history out here in the West. I love that cutout along the top. This is a marker for the Lander Cutoff, built in 1858, and I think this is the only part of the trail that was constructed by the federal government. Let me show you on a map. This is a classic map of the Oregon Trail and California Trail. And you'll note here's Independence, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming. Now I want to zoom into Wyoming a little. The original Oregon Trail went down to Fort Bridger and back up into Idaho, and you see there's a pretty significant V there. Well, pretty quickly there was a cutoff through here called the Sublette Cutoff, and then later the cutoff that I'm talking about now, the Lander Cutoff, came through here. And I'll be intersecting the Lander Cutoff in a couple of places right in here. And it cut off 7 days of travel compared to the old route, which went through Fort Bridger. And the immigrants really liked this cutoff because it eliminated a 50-mile waterless desert of the Sublette Cutoff, which was a earlier cutoff to avoid Fort Bridger. But the paved road intersects the Lander Cutoff in several places, and that's what we're going to do today. I'm at the famous South Pass, Wyoming. And if you know anything about the Oregon Trail, you know how important this pass was on the trail. The reason being, it was an easy way to get over the Rocky Mountains. Look how smooth that is down through there. We're at nearly 8,000 feet, and I just crossed the Continental Divide a couple miles down the road. It was an easy pass to get over the Rockies. And remember, the Mormons pushed hand carts through here. Without South Pass, it would have taken much longer to settle the West. It would have happened, but this was an important part of the trail. And I came from that direction this morning. Looks a little snowy over there right now. I've watched YouTube videos about the Dawson Road in Alaska and some of the places along the road, fuel stops and motels, and this reminds me a little bit of what I've seen in those videos. There's a convenience store. Of course, the whole parking lot is gravel and potholes. Lots of 18-wheelers parked around. And then if you need to spend the night, apparently they have rentals here. Oh, furnished rooms for me. Oh, these are furnished. My bad. These are furnished rooms right here.
Turn right on US 1.
And they look nice enough from the outside, but they sure look small. I guess just enough room for a bed and a crapper. But I got fuel. I had planned my trip such that I wasn't counting on this particular spot. Even though I knew about it, I didn't need for it to be here or to be opened. Sometimes the GPS will say there's a fuel stop ahead, but when there's only one in an area, I tend to not depend on that because it could be closed or out of fuel or whatever. Anyway, I've got fuel and it's all good. I'm at a spot where the Lander Road or Lander Cutoff intersects the paved highway, and I want to point out a couple of things. Here's a marker for it. The thing I find interesting, until the coming of the railroad in 1869, up to 300 wagons and thousands of cattle, horses, and mules may have passed here in a day. Trail ruts visible behind this sign and continuing over the next ridge are reminders of the largest known voluntary migration in world history. So here's a map of Wyoming, and here's the general area that I'm in. This morning I stayed, way over here in Lander, and I am coming up 191, and here's where we are. And the Lander Road cuts across from east to west. And it says that the road, let me get a close up. That is the road, not the fence line. The fence line is not the road. The road is to the left of the fence line, and you can barely see it in the distance. I think I can get a better view from right over here. Okay, now, right in the middle of your view is the Lander Road. The best mountain road in the West. So in 1857, Congress funded construction of the Lander Road, marking the government's first efforts to boost Western immigration and fulfill its manifest destiny. Frederick Lander had a team of engineers, and they surveyed 3,000 miles of potential routes in 90 days. He selected a northerly route with plenty of grass, water, and timber that crossed fewer streams than the existing Oregon-California trails. They constructed 230 miles of road, finished it in 1859. 13,000 immigrants used the new road that year. And there's a fellow that accompanied him and made sketches and so forth, and then made some paintings. Look at that. Lots of green grass, friendly Native Americans, teepees, of course the roaring waterfall in the background. And I like this one. Crossing the plains is one of the best methods ever thought of to find out the disposition of man or woman. If there's anything good in them, it will crop out. And if they are mean, you will find that out sure. Now the place I wanted to go to is across the road and up a dirt track, and that's not going to happen, but I see a monument over there, so let's go check it out. It's another marker for the Lander Cutoff, erected in 1947. And here's where I thought I was going to go, but I think I'll skip that. I'm not in the mood to deal with that. And here's a little marker. Yeah, there's nothing on it. It's like it had a brass plate at one point, but it's gone. Had modern travel on it now, but this pretty much is the Lander Road. Through here, across the pavement, we saw the markers. Through there. Very nice view. There's no way the GoPro does this justice, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm at the New Fork River crossing on the Lander Trail. This is a fairly large park, and I'm not going to walk all the trails, but the signs say that this area still looks pretty much the way it did when the immigrants were coming through here. And here it talks about the Continental Divide, which is just a few days' journey behind here, was about halfway of their 5 to 6 month journey. Here was hundreds of immigrants. If you were here in the late 1860s, this quiet setting would be alive with noises from livestock, people, wagons, and water. With half their journey behind them, most immigrants came to the New Fork River crossing between mid-June and mid-August. Arriving any earlier or later caused hardships at the start or end of the trip. Most arrived in July. During this short season, several hundred immigrants crossed and camped here each day. Most stayed for only one day. During high water, it could take a wagon train party 2 or 3 days to make this crossing. Hundreds of immigrants and wagons in this camping area. That would have been a sight. I'm sure the Park Service has done metal detecting here, but wow, I bet it'd be interesting what you could find here in a common camping spot where tens of thousands of people camped. Well, someone had some fun. Three Fork River, Lander Cutoff. Apparently the stream has changed course since then. Lander chose this particular spot because there was an island in the middle of the stream, and so that made it easier to cross the stream. They could ford the river, get on the island, regroup, and ford the other side. And I guess that split half the water down each side. Maybe that made it easier to ford. I'm making that up. I really don't know. Here's someone, Sherlock Bristol, July 30, 1862. They looked at all their wagon beds, selected two of the tightest and best made, took them off axles, caulked them as tight as possible, made them fit for boating, and then put them in the water. The next morning they were soaked tight. Oh, the wood swelled in the water and made them watertight. So they took each wagon apart in pieces, put it in one boat, baggage in the other, and rowed over. Nearly 40 wagons were taken over that day. Wow. Hard way across the river. And I think I need to get on the road. The clouds look a little dark. I'm at Big Hill because it says so. Right there. April 7th, 1852. Some people came through here and they talked about coming down the Big Hill. It's very steep and difficult to climb. We had to double teams going up, and at the summit we had unhitched teams and let the wagons stand over the steep, smooth, sliding rock by ropes wound around trees. Some trees are nearly cut through by ropes. The boys fished a while, then took a ramble around the country and discovered a pass by which the mountain can be avoided by doing a little road building. So on July 17th, the Meekers went on toward Oregon, but this one guy, William Buck, remained behind with the McAuleys. They stayed here for 14 days, building a road around Big Hill. They had 8 or 9 hands to help them, paid them $2 a day. It was completed July 29th. They left a couple of men on the road for a week or two to collect toll to pay for the expenses of making it. It says it will never rank among the great shortcuts of the Oregon-California Trail, but it does reflect the initiative and thought of a group of young Americans in the year 1852. That's a sight. Let me show you Big Hill. Okay, here's a display showing Big Hill. Now look, come over the top. They come winding down to the bottom, according to this display. Now let me just pan up. And again, the GoPro just makes everything look simple, flat, but those are some steep hills over there. There's some beautiful snowy peaks over there, but I had to stop and read about Smith's Trading Post. 1848, peg leg. In 1848, Peg Leg Smith established a trading post on the Oregon Trail at Big Timber, somewhere near here on the river. Some travelers called it Fort Smith, although it was only 4 log cabins and some Indian lodges. Packing a plow and tools from Salt Lake City, Smith, who was a mountain man who had to amputate his own leg 20 years before, tried unsuccessfully to raise crops. But he did big business when the California Gold Rush of 1849 brought thousands past here. 49ers reported that he had many horses and cattle and was making $100 a day in 1849. Old Peg Leg.